Council. As I stated in our previous meeting, we are not expecting the fire alarm to sound this afternoon. If the alarm does go off, please leave the building by the nearest exit. The assembly point is on the green in front of the St Peter's Hill Surgery. I would like to begin by welcoming all councillors and officers and the members of the press and public who are joining our second extraordinary meeting today. I would also draw your attention to the fact that the meeting is being recorded. Members are reminded that when speaking, comments should be addressed through the chairman and members should speak clearly into their microphone. Members are also reminded that when the chairman starts to speak, you are to stop speaking and be seated. Throughout this meeting, we will be voting by a show of hands. The only occasion we'll be using a roll call vote will be if a recorded vote is requested. We will now begin to work our way through today's agenda. Can I please ask the Democratic Services Manager to confirm any apologies that have been received for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We've had apologies from Councillors Ian Stokes, Zoe Lane, Penny Robbins, Nick Robbins, Jane Kingman, Murray Turner, although he does have to join us if he can, Ben Green, Nikki Mansfield. I'll defer to the Chamber if there's any further apologies. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any further apologies to be noted? Councillor Steptoe?
Councillor Rob. I do apologise. Seating monitor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Members are reminded that a disclosable pecuniary interest is an interest any member holds where they or their spouse or civil partner is likely to receive a financial benefit or disadvantage because of the decision that is being made. For example, this could be because of their employment or a dividend they may have in respect of an affected business. It also covers any land they hold. Members should also consider whether they have any other registrable interests or non-registrable interests that would need declaring at the meeting in accordance with the Council's Code of Conduct. Once you have declared an interest, you should leave the meeting, not speak or vote on the debate. If any member has any interests that they need to disclose, please indicate them now. Thank you. If during debate it becomes clear to you that you have a disclosable pecuniary interest or any other interest in an item, you can declare it at the relevant point of the meeting. We will now proceed with the next item of business. I will now ask Graham if you will please make a statement.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to clarify in relation to public speaking. Virginia Moran is Chairman of the CIC, is here and has registered to speak at this meeting. Just for absolute clarity, Councillor Virginia Moran has a other registrable interest in this item, which is here as a member of the CIC to make a presentation to full council. The usual rules around public speaking dictate that public speakers have 5 minutes to speak. Given, again, similar to the previous meeting, the extraordinary nature of this meeting and the fact it's a one-item agenda, and to be consistent with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Council may wish to consider extending that period of speaking. At Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it was 20 minutes that was provided to enable a presentation to be made on the business case from the CIC, but that is obviously up to full Council to determine. Thank you, Chairman.
Have we got a proposer and a seconder for this motion? Councillor Harrison proposing, Councillor Dilks seconding. Can we please have a vote? All those in favour, please raise your hands. This is to allow Miss Moran to have 20 minutes. Any against? Any abstentions? The motion's carried. Thank you. Would you like to speak now, please, Ms. Moran?
Yes, sorry. I was expecting things to be in a different order. Don't ask me why. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. Quite a full house, really. You'd think it was something important we were deciding. Anyway, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present this request for funding towards the renovation and reopening of the Deepings Leisure Centre, and for your time this afternoon to give it your consideration. I've been an SKDC councillor for Market and West Deeping for the past 5 years, but today I'm addressing you in my role as Director of the Deepings Community Leisure Centre, CIC. I have with me almost all of the rest of the directors. They are Martin Riley, who is Director with responsibility for the refurbishment programme, Paul Smith-Shelton, the Director with responsibility for our illustrative cash flow, and who is our liaison with organisations wishing to use the new facilities. Chris Davis is coordinating our grant applications, including the Community Ownership Fund bid, and the final director is Ian Stiggle, who is a commercial electrician and long-time Deepings resident. When Councillor Baxter comes to do his piece, he'll go through the long years of where we've got to this position, so I'm not going to cover that. The request is looking for this council's support to reinstate leisure facilities to thousands of residents in the Deepings and beyond, facilities that they have enjoyed for almost 50 years and which will bring parity with the other 3 towns of South Kesteven. Throughout all our previous battles to retain facilities, we have had the unending support of residents, and this has never wavered. The Deepings is truly the least supported area within SKDC, and we have watched over the years as one service or facility after another has been taken away. We have no arts centre or large events venue. Our community centre is run by volunteers. We now run our own immensely successful library, again with volunteers. We looked after ourselves during the pandemic with volunteers. And we recently updated a little SKDC play park, again with money raised by volunteers. And so it goes on. We now wish to be given the means to run our leisure centre, again with volunteers on a not-for-profit basis. I'd now like to comment on various aspects of the documents before you. Our business plan gives you an outline of the services we hope to provide, the repairs required and the funding sources for those repairs. I will say that to date, as recently as a couple of days ago, we've received from Lincolnshire County Council incredible support, and this has been very much appreciated. At the closure and handing back of the centre to them by SKDC, they could have simply torn the building down and handed the land to the school. They didn't, nor did they want to. In addition to giving us the opportunity to buy the land and buildings, they have also offered us considerable financial support towards those repairs. Their stipulations were that the amount of that offer was kept confidential, and we have done our utmost to ensure that that is adhered to, hence why we asked for the plan to be kept on pink papers, and we would be grateful if that confidentially was adhered to by those attending today. LCC also stipulated that we employed a professional leisure company to run the centre, and that we accommodate the school's requirements for use of the sports hall. We were happy to comply with both, as they were our intentions anyway. We are also grateful to Sir John Hayes, our local MP, for his consistent support. The plan also includes our costs of renovations. These are dramatically different from those provided to SKDC in the past, and there's several reasons for this. The first is that the figures provided to SKDC were based on a formula, which meant that each item of expenditure was based on the square meterage of the footprint of the building. This is patently flawed, so any comparison with those figures is a nonsense. We have provided written quotations from local suppliers which show exactly what the cost of each item is. The second reason our costings are so low is that we have the benefit of several of the companies doing the large items of work, such as the roof, the electrical work, and the new heating, solar and ventilation systems being done at cost. We also benefit from several professional services which are being provided free of charge. These include an architect, a solicitor and a barrister. Please don't think for 1 second that this will mean inferior quality of work. Quite the reverse. These are local, well-qualified people who want this centre open again, not just for their own benefit, but for their children and grandchildren's benefit, and for the community as a whole. This is how Deeping's people operate. SKDC officers appear to have taken the view that because our prices are low, we won't be complying with building regulations, insurance or health and safety requirements. I don't know why they would think that. Why would we not be providing the best possible facilities for ourselves and our families? There is also mention in the report that we will not be providing a full refurbishment. No room in the centre will remain untouched. They have also mentioned in meetings that we have no budget for exterior upgrading. That's correct. Doesn't mean we won't do it in the future. Frankly, nobody minds about the fact that the cladding's a bit rusty. What matters are the facilities inside, and that's where we are concentrating our efforts. I have provided details from our project management company, which you will see covers all aspects of building control and health and safety. We have also outlined the other professional leisure centre providers we are hoping to work with and presented our estimates of the income that the centre will generate. At the outset of this initiative, we didn't want to fall into the trap which a lot of community groups fall into, which is enthusiastically overestimating our income. And we have based our figures on the very minimum amount of support that we would expect to achieve. Every single professional provider who has seen these figures has expressed the opinion that we have severely underestimated, particularly in respect of gym membership, and our recent public consultation backs up that opinion. We did this on purpose because we needed to assure ourselves that we could run the centre effectively and at a profit at the lowest take-up. There is a strong reliance on swimming, which is due to the fact that we are the only publicly accessible deep water 6-lane 25-metre pool for some considerable distance. We have prepared an invitation to tender to all 5 of the companies who have expressed interest in running the centre for us. This will be issued as soon as we have decisions on funding from SKDC and LCC, and we will appoint them very shortly thereafter. All the companies are already running successful leisure centres and will carry any financial shortfall that may occur during the first few months of opening. We are very fortunate in that, quite uniquely, we have 6 income streams that will immediately be forthcoming upon opening. The Anthem Trust for use of the sports hall, the Deeping Swimming Club, who will immediately move back home, school swimming lessons and Swim School, which will be forward booked as we approach opening, and advance booking for gym and swim memberships. Whilst building work is taking place, we will also be confirming evening and weekend sports hall usage from the many clubs and organisations who have contacted us expressing interest, together with offering rental space in our studios to exercise providers and support services through our leisure provider. The building itself will remain in the ownership of the CIC as a public asset, and we will have monthly meetings with our leisure provider. In the past, due to the agreement between SKDC and the Anthem Trust, the Deepings Leisure Centre was unable to reach its full potential. It now can. The agreement gave the school the majority of pool use during the day in term time, which resulted in a lack of public and club use. The residents of Deeping frequently bemoaned the fact that the pool would be empty for hours on end. The school simply didn't need the amount of hours it was allocated, and whilst the school often offered time back to SKDC, SKDC couldn't accept these hours as they were outside of published times or at short notice. We have met with the Trust on numerous occasions and they no longer require any pool time on a permanent basis. If they do need pool time, this will be booked on an ad hoc basis through the normal channels. They have asked for daytime use of between 38 and 40 weeks of the sports hall for PE and examinations, and we are happy to accommodate them, together with ad hoc usage for special events during the evening at a discounted rate. Dependent upon the result of this meeting, we will be meeting them at the end of the month, hopefully with our prospective partner, to finalise hours and costs. We will also be finalising our car park requirements, joint access to the site, and the breakdown of any repair costs to that joint access. We were very grateful for Martin Hill's letter earlier this week to you all, and have discussed our exit strategy briefly with him at past meetings. In response to that, we have published our exit strategy, and you should have that before you. Finally, on the business plan, I'd like to tell you where we're up to with funding sources. At present, we require just short of £2 million to complete all the works. However, this includes a contingency of almost £500,000. The contingency is there to cover any items which we become aware of, such as the asbestos in the building, which is currently contained, but we have an estimate for removal should we decide that that is the best course of action. Minor items such as relining our area of the car park are also included. We have today's request for £850,000 from this council. LCC have indicated what they would be prepared to contribute, and we have a community ownership bid in, currently for around £450,000. We have been allocated a consultant by the COF who is there to assist us in completing our bid successfully. There are a couple of reports that the COF require, but they are providing us with funding to obtain these reports. We have commitment from various local parish councils, although we've seen very few of them at the moment. Those figures are before you. A lot of them are keeping their powder dry, shall we say, until they find out the result of this meeting, which is fair enough. They're also in precept negotiations at the moment. You'll notice one of the parish councils isn't actually an SKDC, that's a Peterborough Parish Council, who have recognised the benefits that the Deepings Leisure Centre holds for the wider community. We also have plans for crowdfunding, obviously, and business sponsorship, which will be announced as soon as we have secured the decision today and Lincolnshire's decision. So, providing we receive all the funding listed, we're covered for a full refurbishment, as outlined. Also in the papers is our Dear Councillor booklet. This was prepared prior to the decision not to pursue a new leisure centre. It was our way of letting councillors at the time know how this was impacting residents, as they had been denied a voice at various meetings, including one in Grantham, where no one was allowed to speak in the public session. I asked residents at the time to write to me outlining the impact the loss of the leisure facilities would have, and the booklet contains a selection of the enormous amount of replies I received. I'd now like to comment on some of the aspects of the officer's report. There's quite a lot of text about a subsidy. I'm not entirely sure why they want to call it a subsidy. Our barrister's opinion disagrees with them. But to be honest, we don't really care what you want to call it, whether you want to call it a subsidy or a grant. It states in the papers that this council has the power to provide these monies as a grant. So we don't mind what you choose. What it also states, though, is that the council should, quite rightly, balance the risks against the potential rewards. Almost no account of the potential rewards of providing a grant or a subsidy, or whatever you want to call it, for this amount and for this purpose has been mentioned. Thousands of residents will receive enormous real mental and physical benefits from this proposal for years to come. Our mantra of providing facilities for all, especially those with mental and physical difficulties, has simply not been acknowledged. Great store has also been placed, apparently, in the SLC report. I think we're all aware that, particularly in business, consultants tell you what you want to hear. I am convinced that we, the CIC, if we had gone to SLC for a report in support of this proposal, that they would have waxed lyrical for page after page about its benefits, just as they did when this council was looking at spending 10 million on the leisure centre. If you tell a consultant, however obscurely, that you have concerns about the viability of a project, they will provide you with the evidence to support those concerns. Constant comparisons with Leisure SK have been made. Why are we being compared to a company which has failed for the entirety of its existence and continues to do so? A company which officers are actively looking to close and replace. Why not compare us with any of the successful leisure centres that all of our proposed partners run? Spalding has recently been given £20 million to build a new leisure centre. Do you really believe that they would have been awarded that amount of money to create a money pit? Very many leisure centres around the country are run well and at a profit year in, year out. Please, I beg of you, allow the Deepings to be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Moran. Agenda item. Mr Watts would like to speak.
Sorry, Chairman. Yeah, just in relation to the exit strategy document, I just need to report to Council for complete openness and transparency that Graham Thompson, who is Chairman of the Deeping St James United Charities, has just requested on the record that his charity be removed from that exit strategy document. They had a meeting yesterday, and that was a decision that they took yesterday, so I just wanted to report that into Council. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 4, Deepings Leisure Centre request for a financial contribution. This report seeks to discuss the request for a financial contribution for the Deepings Leisure Centre, taking into account recommendations from the Joint Finance and Economic and Culture and Leisure Overview and Scrutiny Committee that met on the 9th of January. I would like to ask the Monitoring Officer, Graham Watts, for advice on the possible suspension of Council procedure rules to enable longer speeches from representatives of the Deepings CIC. Following a report from Councillor Ashley Baxter and Paul Stokes, there will be the opportunity to ask questions of Virginia Moran, a representative. Pardon?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm, we've dealt with the public speaking element of the meeting now, so we're now going on to the main item for debate. So again, consistent with the previous item, Council may wish to consider, with its consent, exceeding the proposer's length of time that he's entitled to undertake his speech. So I don't know if Council want to give consent for longer than the normal 5 minutes for the proposition to be made. Thank you, Chairman.
Is there a proposer for the recommendations to the report? Councillor Gill.
Thank you. In terms of extending the speech, I've reached out to Councillor Baxter and Councillor Cleaver in advance. The joint scrutiny meeting on Tuesday, which I'm sure you're aware was 4.5 hours. I've attempted to summarise that in 5 minutes and failed. So I reached out to Councillor Baxter and Councillor Cleveland saying that we really do need to extend that. At the same time, I would urge people to only be allowed to speak once, so that we're not here for another 4.5 hours. But I would propose that we extend public speaking to 7 minutes. Thank you. Or councillor speaking, sorry.
Have we got a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Bisnar Singh. Can we now take a vote, please? All those in favour, please raise your hands. Any against? Any abstentions? One abstention. That's the motion carried. Thank you. Have we got a proposer now for this recommendation? Councillor Baxter, have we got a seconder? Councillor Paul Stokes, would you like to speak, Councillor Baxter?
Yes, thank you. But before...
Excuse me, I've just been recommended to tell you that you have 7 minutes.
Yeah, I realise that. I realised that when... OK, but before you start the clock, Chair, can I just, by way of a point of order, check that we've all got the right paperwork in the right order? I hope that you have a letter from Martin Hill received today. You have a sheet that says the Council notes the comments and outcome of a joint scrutiny meeting. And then there was talk of an exit strategy document. I haven't got that. I don't know if I'm alone in not having that. Do you know, is that recently it was emailed?
This morning. Yeah, this morning.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Someone's helpfully passed it to me. I'd also like to clarify that in the agenda pack, in the report that went to joint scrutiny, paragraph 1.38 has been deleted. You're all aware of that. It's about building control. So with that, if it's possible to bring up... Why what? Oh, you'll have to...
Thank you. Just to confirm with members, subsequent advice was received from the building control manager that the whole of the building would need to be brought up to current building regulations if we were introducing a heat source. The proposals before you today change the heat source rather than introduce a new one. So paragraph 1.38 only is to be disregarded.
I haven't got a clicker, but if you can start my clock now for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Yes, we have.
The proposal to the meeting from myself and Councillor Stokes is to take the items which were listed at the Overview Scrutiny Committee and then, in light of the comments that were made and the reasonable questions that were made at the Overview Scrutiny Committee, to add on items F, G, H and I. So I apologise for the late arrival of this. I also expect that after I've spoken there may be a proposal to add in at least one extra amendment, and I welcome the debate about the whole issue, although as Graham Gill says, I wouldn't want to be here for another 3.5 hours. So next slide please. I'm not going to put you through this because I know it's painful for me. I guess it's painful for you that we've had this centre since 1974. We were promised, or the Deepings were promised, a brand new leisure centre, and then they were promised a refurbished leisure centre, and then the existing leisure centre was shut for good due to a chronic lack of maintenance. Then there was a £10 million refurbishment promised. A year later, that offer was taken away. Much acrimony, much press coverage, betrayal on the front page of the Stamford Mercury, but we handed back, as a council, we handed back the keys to LCC. Next slide, please. In January last year. Last year, 2023, was more positive because there was a community group established in the Deepings. There was an election which has changed the administration, and we're all much happier place to be now, I think. The LTC invited expressions of interest. The CIC was registered at Companies House, and today you will be deciding whether to give the community an opportunity to fix the centre and get it back open, or say to the County Council, demolish it. I'm very disappointed in the letter that's come in last minute from Councillor Martin Hill. I don't understand the last minuteness of it, and I dispute a lot of the content. Next slide, please. The decision today, as I've just said, is whether or not we give £850,000 to unlock funding of £2.2 million from the County Council, from other funding sources and the Community Ownership Fund, for it to be a community-owned facility, free of the shackles of local government, free of district and county council, run by the community, in the community, for the community. Next slide, please. These were the questions that were considered by the Overview Scrutiny Committee. I'm sure you've all watched both tapes of the 2-hour meeting and the 1.5-hour meeting, or at least you've been given the gist of them by your group leaders or by each other. Basically, there was a support in principle to put this question before this council, which is great. So the next two slides show the kind of activities that used to go on at the Deepings Leisure Centre and which could in the future. The first are the Tang Soo Do group that used to be in the sports hall. This photo includes world champions. I can't tell you which ones are the world champions and which ones are others. Take my word for it, world champions. And the next slide shows the Deeping Swimming Club currently training in exile at Bourne, Stamford, Bourne Outdoor Pool, Stanground and the Stamford Endowed Schools pools, currently training in exile, that want to be back in the centre, and they are aspiring Olympians. So that concludes that bit. I hope that was shorter than last time, Councillor Gill. I've cut quite a lot out because a lot of the questions were there. So just to go through the extra bits of the resolution. Point 5, there was a lot of talk about the suitable... there was a reasonable question from Councillor Crawford about the group's got no money, how is it going to be able to afford to run a centre? The model is, as Ms Moran has just explained, that the centre will be owned by the Community Interest Company, but there will be a service level agreement in place with a third-party provider. I mustn't do advertising, must I? But there are 5 on the hook. People that run leisure centres all over the place, and during the next month or two, we expect that the CIC, having been given confidence by this body that the money is forthcoming, that there's a willingness to provide the money, that they will be able to engage with a third-party provider. And that in turn will mean that the third-party provider that will run the leisure centre, using the resources to set up that they already have from their multiple leisure centres elsewhere, they will be able to do the marketing, to do the sign-ups, to do all the preparatory work, so that on day one the centre is running with plenty of members. That's beside the members that we already, besides the users that already are coming because of the swim school, because of the actual school, the school swimming lessons, and the ones that Virginia mentioned. Secondly, we need a formal agreement with the school. The school have not been publicly vocal about their support for the centre. This is a real mutual benefit. They're running a school, they need a sports hall and an exam hall. The Community Interest Company will be providing a sports hall which can be used as an exam hall. It's a win-win if they can get to a formal arrangement. So if Anthem Trust are watching, can you please support your community and allow your community to support you. Thirdly, a robust, final and affordable quotes for the refurbishment of the centre. There's been a lot over the last few months, and I should have said at the start, I pay tribute to the patience and indefatigability of the officers, particularly Karen and Richard, in putting together the
30 seconds.
In front of you. Finally, we would take all this back to SKDC Cabinet. as I've said, I'm expecting another amendment, but if we could use this one as the basis of the conversation today, and if I can encourage you all to vote for it, then we get to the next stage and we can start properly to plan for the opening of a much-needed facility in the Deepings. Thank you.
Have you got a seconder for that amendment? Can I confirm that it's Paul Stokes seconding? Thank you. Would you like to speak, Councillor Stokes? Thank you. You may speak. I'll turn you on.
I think we just need to remember we're not here today to do a financial transfer tomorrow morning. We've got lots and lots of conditions already there. The meeting the other day brought forward other very reasonable things that have been put forward in the notes before you. It almost seems that we're asking the CIC to jump through more hoops than a circus entertainer. To me, it is a classic case of if something is not impossible, there has to be a way to do it. If this was a moral thing, which we talked about the other day, there is no doubt it would be 100%. We all agree that. Yes. But we can't deal with morality alone. We know that there has to be strong evidence, and I think that the CIC, thank you gentlemen for coming today, and to all those thousands, I'm sure, watching online. Currently we expect Deeping and the surrounding residents to travel 12 miles each way to Bourne, 12 miles each way to Stamford, or 12 miles each way to either Spalding or Peterborough. We've seen lots of figures about potential migration from Bourne, from Stamford, of the Deeping people who travel. But it's my belief and argument that there are an awful lot more people not taking part in leisure and who are suffering in terms of mental health and well-being and fitness opportunities. In terms of business migration, I think that we, as a council, need our companies to up its game. There is lots of empty space at various times in our leisure centres. I've been to our Grantham Centre on 2-3 occasions this week, and there's been pool space, there's been gym space, and there's been empty halls. Do we really want our people to travel outside our district? There is opportunity from South Holland, from Peterborough. Those people could travel to us, and that's visitor economy. In terms of the construction costs, we had a good debate about construction costs. I think Virginia Moran talked about it. I totally respect Councillor Wood's points as a chartered surveyor, retired. I'm actually a chartered surveyor, not retired. And I have access to a lot of data and accommodation, and we need to look at that. Also, one of the things that came out in the talk the other day was Martin Riley explained to us that some of the quotes were received from people who had actually worked at North Highcombe and Sleaford. So we're not just talking with Fred Bloggs from Deeping. These are quotes from genuine contractors who will be on accepted lists from other authorities. The Deeping proposal includes compact, cost-effective and easy-to-operate activity spaces. They're working with community groups, largely, to develop blended management models that combine leisure expertise with trained and committed volunteers. The combination with the school is massive, especially with the school coming more on board, in fairness, than it did previously. Meeting the community where they are is a mantra of this project. Delivery branding personas that truly reflect the philosophy of helping people move better, live well, and fully accept and integrate within their community. I really support this proposal, and I think we need to do everything we can to back it.
Thank you. Councillor Gill.
Thank you. I wanted to start again by praising the cross-community work of the Deepings Community Interest Group Company, the Save the Deepings Leisure Centre Group, of which there are people in the room, the hundreds of hours of officers' time that went into this report. But I wanted to start by summarising the concerns and some of the points raised in the 4.5 hours that we spoke about on Tuesday. On the legal advice from Bev and Britton about the Subsidy Control Act, it was mentioned that there was not much case law on the Subsidy Control Act. We have to ask, are we comfortable being one of the test cases on this? Have we received assurances that this decision is legal? And the business case sinks or swims based upon the success of gym, soft play and non-swimming income, where a £2 million subsidy would be of interest to claimants. That's something we must discuss. On operational risk management or worst case scenarios, we requested business failure insurance from a reputable insurance provider should costs run away or income not be generated, or, God forbid, COVID or a pandemic came again, closing the leisure industry. The community group said that they would have an asset-locked company that would have that. Now, we've heard today that Deeping St James United Charity would not want the responsibility of those liabilities. I think we really need to know who would take on this should the worst happen. On the Anthem Trust, we were told that there have been constructive talks with the school, but there is nothing in writing that would support the claim that they would support the Department of Education transferring the leisure centre, or how the Anthem Trust would manage the complex safeguarding arrangements required in having secondary school students mingling with the public on site. On costings, the Officer recommendations and professional quantity surveyor's advice described the costings as unrealistic in the paperwork. I appreciate that the CIC disagree, but we have paid for professional advice from consultants with professional indemnity insurance, and if they are wrong, we need overwhelming evidence as to why they're wrong. On the business case, this authority commissioned in August of last year one of the UK's leading sports and leisure consultancy firms, SLC, to review the business case. They didn't believe it was realistic. That is in your packs. That is in the public domain. The community group explained that they have received alternative information and alternative advice, saying that the projections are understated and they will receive more income, but that this couldn't be made public. That's not helping us come to a positive decision here. When this decision is reviewed in future years, our decision will have to be based upon what we can see, not what we can't see. In 2020, this authority commissioned the 128-page MACE report, which explored the viability, market analysis and produced auctions appraisals for the council in leisure. It concluded that a district like ours should only have 2 leisure centres, one in the north and one in the south. Reports say that the reopening of the Deepings Leisure Centre would have a major impact, particularly on the viability of Bourne Leisure Centre. And I asked on Tuesday, are we voting on the closure of Bourne Leisure Centre today? Now, that was answered by Cabinet Member Councillor Stokes, who did not agree with the professional advice that we've received as a council. But I'm sure that this will be of concern to councillors from Bourne and Stamford, whose viability was questioned in the 128-page MACE report. We are where we are, and I want to reiterate the work undertaken by the community was and has been and is inspiring. If only they had a combined authority mayor to argue their case to national government. This project is going to require a lot of luck, and I genuinely say good luck to the community group, because there's a lot of evidence that we've been presented with that suggests they're going to need luck. £70,000 a year it costs the Lincolnshire taxpayer to hold this building empty, in rates, security, etc. The Lincolnshire taxpayer needs a decision. We spent 4.5 hours discussing this at joint overview and scrutiny, which ended in a vote 9-9, with the chairman or the former secretary of the Save the Deepings Leisure Centre, Councillor Lee, taking the casting vote. There is no whipped or group position today. I just want to put that on the public record. I've said to everyone, you need to read the report, the 28 pages of consultancy and officer information in front of you, and come to your own decision. But this decision today is going to have a serious impact on frontline services, and therefore I propose that we have a recorded vote. So if I have a number of people to stand for a recorded vote. Do you need to count that, Madam Chairman? I think that was supported.
I think that's carried.
Also, my one last plea, for the love of all that is holy, let's not have another 4.5 hours with one group of people saying professional advisors and officers say this is not a safe decision, and another group of people saying we disagree, but we don't have the evidence why. I would strongly urge people that we need to move to a vote as quickly as possible, because I believe positions are quite entrenched in this chamber. We need to move to a vote and move on with this. Thank you.
Councillor Bisnath Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I would like to just clarify to members. I tend to think in Creole, in French Creole, and try to translate it in English so that I can get my points across. So I have written something, and please forgive me. I will read that to the assembled members here. In Creole, oh yeah, vous comprenez ça? Bon, faut bien content faire aller. Okay. I stand, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Council, I stand before you today to advocate for a cause that is not just about bricks and mortars, but about the heart and soul of our community. Today, I urge you to consider supporting the grant of £850,000 to the Deeping Community Leisure Centre CIC. Our community is the lifeblood of our society, and the health and well-being of its members are paramount. The South Kesteven District Council has long-standing commitment to supporting a healthy community, and this grant represents a golden opportunity to further that commitment. The proposed Deeping Community Leisure Centre is not just another building, it is a sanctuary where the entire populations of Deeping and nearby villages can come together to nurture their physical and mental well-being through exercise, community engagement. It is a project that embodies the spirit of unity and vitality that we all wish to see flourish in our towns and villages. The refurbishment of the existing building will breathe a new life into the space that has potential to become the hub for health, fitness, social connections. It will provide a space for people of all ages and backgrounds to come together, break a sweat, and build lasting connections. The benefits of regular exercise on both physical and mental health are well documented, and by supporting this project, we are investing in the long-term health of our community. Moreover, the Deeping Community Leisure Centre is not just a place for fitness enthusiasts. It will be a place for families to bond, for seniors to stay active, and for the youth to find a positive and constructive outlet for their energy. It will be a centre that promotes exclusivity, where everyone, regardless of age, ability, can participate and feel a sense of belonging to the community. I implore each and every one of you to recognise the significance of this grant in shaping the future of our community by supporting the establishment of the Deeping Community Leisure Centre
Leisure Centre, we are not just funding a project, but we are investing in the health and happiness and interconnectedness of the people we represent. People from Stamford, from Deeping, even from Grantham, if you want to come down there and support it. In conclusion, I urge you to stand on the side of healthier and more vibrant community. Let us seize this opportunity to make lasting impact on the lives of the residents of Deeping and nearby villages. I implore the Assembly to fully support the grants of the £850,000 for the Deeping Leisure Centre CIC. In addition, I would like to draw a parallel of this CIC to the work that happened in Stamford Corn Exchange Theatre Company way back in 1999 when it was in a terrible derelict state. That was people, volunteers from the community, has brought it up to standard today that it provides a very good performing art theatre, and it encompasses everybody. It's still run by volunteers, and a lot of volunteers and businesses did voluntarily give their time to work for it. So I fully recommend this proposal that's put forward, that we support it. Thank you for your time and considerations.
Councillor Phil Dilks.
I beg your pardon, Madam Chairman. Thank you. I'm sure you probably know, but Deeping's Leisure Centre is in my ward of Deeping St James, which I'm privileged to represent, along with my colleagues Councillor Bridget Lay and Councillor James Dennison, who were elected in May. Almost half a century ago, as we've heard, this council decided Deeping's needed a purpose-built leisure centre. We've seen massive growth in housing since then. Deeping's has grown really hugely, and hundreds more houses are planned. Our residents had a leisure centre for 47 years before it was taken away from us, without any plan for adequate swimming or leisure provision to serve 18,000 people in the Deepings and surroundings, one of our 4 towns of South Kesteven. I've only lived in Deeping St James for just over 40 years. I'm a newcomer. I'm proud to say I had family membership, a family membership card for our leisure centre in those early days when there was such a thing. And my kids, 2 girls, learned to swim in that pool, as generations of kids have done since. I also wish to publicly thank, I pay warm tribute to our MP, Miss Moran. No, she's not the MP yet, but our MP, that's comma, Miss Moran, and all the directors of the CIC, and those on all current sides of the House. I really respect the questions and the opinions from everywhere on this issue. And those who have worked behind the scenes tirelessly, frankly, to overcome the almost endless barriers placed before them over the past 18 months in their efforts to restore swimming to the Deepings. Every time more hoops and caveats have been presented, I've got to say I've been so impressed with how the CIC have bounced back with the solution on behalf of the thousands who are right behind wanting to get the pool reopened and the leisure centre. The issue's not gone away. Since the council reversed its commitment to a £10 million refurbishment, it's fair to say the reputation of this council has not been enhanced by that decision. And I actually believe today's a chance to start repairing some of that damage, quite literally, of course. Spending money public money always carries a risk, and it is quite right to properly scrutinise and balance those risks with the risks of not spending that money and continuing the detrimental health effect on our residents, young and old and disabled, like the chap that called me last night, who has got no access to swimming currently. He can't get to Bourne or Stamford. It's about today doing the right thing, giving Deepings a chance. As you can imagine, with the building being boarded up with a leaky roof almost 3 years ago, it needs work to start without delay. You know, please don't kick it down the road. As Councillor Gill says, let's have a decision today. I would say, may I just say, a similar council-run leisure pool in Lincoln closed at roughly the same time ours did, Yarborough. And it opened within a year, about a year, and I believe the cost was about £1 million for the roof repair and other repairs within that leisure centre. It can be done. It can be done by a council as well as the CIC. And of course, today is not the request for £20 million that was specifically promised by a former leader of the council at the first public meeting after our leisure centre was closed, with a leaky roof, which later got downgraded to an absolute firm commitment to spend £10 million on a full refurbishment a year later. What's being asked today is less than 10% of that. Today you've got a chance to do the right thing for our residents, who deserve nothing less than what they've had for 47 years. Please vote to give Deepings the same opportunity that we give residents of our other 3 towns. And I find it very bizarre to hear that the other 3 pools have benefited because ours has closed, and that you want to maintain that advantage. It does seem very odd to me. Last time I don't believe it anyway, because there's plenty of people in the Deepings area who have no access right now to swimming and other leisure facilities. Last time I went to Bourne with my grandchildren to swim, I got to the reception. They said, "Have you booked?" I said, "No." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're full." I couldn't go in, you know. So I really do appeal to you, in conclusion, please vote to give Deepings a chance. Thank you.
Councillor Lay.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say, in reply to Councillor Gill, that I haven't been part of this CIC group since way before September. So I just wanted to clarify that point.
Point of information, I didn't say that, but I said...
Councillor Gill.
The secretary of that. Sorry, point of information, I didn't say that. I completely accept that. You were the secretary of the Save the Deepings Leisure Group, but yeah.
Councillor Lay, would you like to continue?
Thank you. But further to that, I would like to say that this is a community project, and it is definitely supported by the local community of the Deepings and further around. It's a one-off payment in support of the Deepings people, who have been let down over a period of time. Morally, we as a district council should be supporting all areas of residents in the SKDC, and I wholeheartedly support this project and will be voting in favour of this today. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I became a councillor to encourage the togetherness and levelling up of my ward, town and district. So I'd like to start off by saying how impressed I am by the unity and effort demonstrated by the Deepings community. On the 8th of January, I received an email from Martin Hill. In this email, he expressed recognition of the legitimate aspirations and pressing requirement of the Deepings communities and the efforts of the Deepings Leisure CIC. Mr Hill is a far more experienced councillor than myself, so I was very pleased that I had the same thoughts as him. He also stated that LCC had no intentions of opening or operating a leisure centre, and that generally he thought it was a good idea. So you can imagine my surprise at the contrary tone in an 11th hour letter received today. The only logic that I can see in this is that the Conservative County Council were hoping in the initial letter that the actions of Pontius Pilate would enable them to say they were sorry it failed, but they had stood by the Deepings. I fear that once he was notified of attendances here today, he realised that there was a very real chance of the full recommendation and the onus returning to County Council. The Deepings have been reneged on and let down by SKDC with promises of first 20 million a new leisure centre, then a 10 million refurb. They're asking today for less than £1 million, and as Councillor Gill said earlier, that will remove the £70,000 a year that our constituents are currently paying to let an empty building that we allowed to fall into to deteriorate in the first case to fall into more disrepair. I find this a moral and financial duty to us to recognise. I will be voting for this today. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Cunnington.
It's just to make a point, Councillor Gill's comments regarding the comments about taking consultants' advice and professionals' advice, whether we decline it or accept it. Would these be the same experts that advise us on Leisure SK?
Councillor Rees-Baker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy New Year, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm in blue, purple and green. I won't tell you what pants I'm wearing. First, I must join all colleagues in thanking all parties for the significant amount of work that's been done on this project to date. I'm grateful for the considered questions of members across the Chamber of all stripes. The project needs to be taken seriously, and the questions over 4.5 hours earlier this week demonstrate that we as a group of councillors are doing just that. So I thank everybody in the room on that. Like many of my colleagues in this chamber, I have been contacted by a wide range of residents on this issue. We are a representative democracy, and I hope to represent the feeling from those residents that have contacted me. We cannot ignore the injustice that Deeping's residents have been forced to bear based on the historical mismanagement of this site. Nor should we casually disregard this project based on the notion that Deeping's residents could just travel what are quite considerable distances or bear the burden of private prices for a simple pleasure like swimming. Swimming, beyond being a potentially life-saving skill, is an integral part of the national curriculum. In my view, every town should have access to low-cost leisure facilities. Every community deserves a sports offering tailored to its unique needs, and every child should have the opportunity to learn to swim without enduring a taxing journey, especially after a full day at school. Recognised as one of the best all-round forms of exercise, swimming's low-impact nature supports individuals who may find other forms of exercise completely inaccessible. The closure of Deeping's Leisure Centre has left a void, depriving our district of a traditional rectangular pool used for focus training and a more extensive range of lanes. We must reject any argument, in my view, that pits the funds allocated to Bourne and Stamford against the reopening of Deeping's Community Leisure Centre. I do not believe this is an either-or approach. I believe that the reopening, subject to all of the scrutiny and the remaining hoops still to go through, of Deeping's Community Leisure Centre will complement, will enhance the leisure offer in our district. I vehemently oppose any stance that does not provide due weight to the well-being and health, both physical and mental, of our residents. The burden on Deeping's Swim Club is undeniable, and the mixed-use leisure pools in Bourne and Stamford simply cannot match the capacity or atmosphere of a competition-style rectangular pool. DSC have no home venue for swim meets. The nomadic lifestyle imposed on the club disrupts its roots in the community, erodes team identity, and places additional travel burdens on families, particularly those involved in competitive swimming. I am grateful for the questions about finances, exit strategies, all of the very viable questions that have been asked. But my plea is, let us not reduce this debate to mere numbers and spreadsheets. The shared details from residents today and via email over the last few weeks humanise this discussion, reminding us that behind every decision are real people, families and clubs. Faced with a significant demolition bill, it is crucial we understand that a significant financial outlay is inevitable. However, only one decision aligns with, in my view, our duty to provide much-needed leisure facilities for the families, community and clubs of the Deepings. I urge my colleagues to prioritise the moral and social imperatives that underscore the urgency of reopening Deepings Community Leisure Centre. Together, let us make a decision that stands as a testament to our commitment to the well-being and flourishing of our community. Madam Chair, I recommend that we wholeheartedly approve this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to echo everybody's thanks to all those who have been involved on a very, very long journey. And I'd actually really, I think one of the folk here hasn't really been mentioned as Councillor Dilks. I know he's been talking about Deepings Leisure Centre since for the whole 4 terms that I've been a councillor, and Councillor Baxter came along, Councillor Moran, to join that battle. Councillor Gill said something, and I thought actually it's a really important point. He said we should base our decision on what we can see. I see an existing pool standing which would be operating today if it had not been let down and fallen into disrepair. I see a community of dedicated people who've worked their socks off and persistently called for those services, for that pool to be reopened. As Vice Chair of Planning, I see significant growth across our entire district. Just to give you an idea, just since 2011, we've had 6,808 new homes actually built. We have far more to come. We are going to need more amenities, and those amenities in turn attract and bring people into our district. I'm a former salesperson. When I see those figures, I see opportunity. So I see our job is to make the most of that opportunity and to get as many people in and using those wonderful amenities across the district as possible. I don't believe in robbing Peter to pay Paul. I am disappointed that the growth in the use of Bourne and Stamford is being used as an argument to keep the Deepings closed. I don't think that's a morally sound argument, I have to say. I believe that what we should be doing is encouraging those people in those communities who are growing, as I've said, to use those amenities, and we should be reopening Deeping. I'm involved in the health and hospital campaigns, and as ever, it's always with these situations, our most vulnerable people who are affected. I was reading the comments by the disabled in particular in the reports from the community, so thank you very much for whoever pulled those together. It's all right if you can drive. It's all right if your parents have got a car. It's all right if you can afford a bus. You will get somewhere else because where there's a will, there's a way. But we know, especially at the moment with the cost of living crisis, that we've got thousands of households across the whole district, and there will be included in the DP, who can't do that. So we're depriving them of access to those really important leisure. And it's not just leisure, it's the community amenities, from what I understand, as well, that are going on that site. So I'm asking that we support this proposal. I had a number of concerns, some of you will know, I had a number of concerns about what's put before us. It isn't perfect. I've actually yet to see a proposal from our council that's perfect. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. But what I'm asking is that we do support this, which to me seems a really good, reasonable compromise, where we're saying, recognising, and I want to thank Richard Wiles and Karen for the work that's gone into their report. They did an important task, and it was not necessarily a pleasant one, because they have to be the mirror, they have to put all the facts before us. But I think it's really important that we, taking those on board, look at what we would miss if we don't have that leisure centre. We cannot afford to let that community down. We have betrayed and we've let them down in the past. It's an opportunity, mostly new members here and a few old ones. We've got an opportunity to right a wrong, and let's not waste it. And we can do it collectively, and we can work together. We can help the Cabinet be armed to move forward and get this right and help this succeed. Not only Deeping, but this should be a lesson to all of us about how important our leisure amenities are across our district. And let's re-energise the focus on all of our leisure amenities. Thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to say quickly that Councillor Gill pointed out that there were lots of pieces of information that were not available, that were on pink papers. And I think it's only fair to put the balance in there and say there is information that wasn't available. That Miss Moran said that she couldn't mention figures in relation to Lincolnshire County Council. The other figure we don't have, all of us here as taxpayers, is here we have one figure, £850,000 towards giving somebody an opportunity to move this centre forward, or an undisclosed sum from another set of our council tax to knock it down. That figure's not been disclosed. I think it would be interesting for everybody, but I think it would probably be proportionally more of my council tax to knock it down than to hand the responsibility to somebody else, which is what this opportunity does. So can I suggest at this point we move to a vote? Thank you.
Well, I've got 4 more people to speak. I'm quite willing to let them speak, but what I would like to know is anybody going to say anything different to what's already been said? Because we had the 4.5-hour meeting, and nearly enough everybody that's spoken has said virtually the same thing that they said on that particular day. There's, I think, I'm quite willing to let people speak, but if you really feel that you're only going to say what everybody else has said, perhaps it would be beneficial time-wise to turn your lights off. The next one to speak is Councillor Stooke.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you. This actually, how can I put it? It actually hits me on the heart, actually, for this community in the Deepings, because before I was a councillor, I fought for my community to keep a playing field. And I know how much it means for communities to keep something that is the centre of our communities. Over the years, from central government to local councils, we've lost youth centres, leisure centres and various other centres that help our communities stay together. And obviously this leisure centre in the Deepings has been there since 1974. Why are we wanting to dismantle it? We should go with it. It is 850k of taxpayers' money, and I'm a stickler when it comes to spending money. But if it is going to benefit the community of the Deepings, and let's show the Deepings they mean something to us. You know, it's not all about Grantham, Stamford, Bourne and all that. This is about the Deepings, who have also felt left out over the years with this council. And I think we can, like Charmaine has said, we can put a wrong and put it as a right. Now, 850k is a lot. I think it will work. Well, no, I don't think it will work. I know it will work. And why do I think it will work? Because it has the community spirit. And wherever there is a community spirit, it will work because the community want it to work and not us as councillors. So therefore, because of that decision, in my own hearts of hearts, I will be voting yes, yes and yes. Thank you.
Councillor Pambird.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will be brief. In fact, one or two of the last speakers have just had some of the lines I have here, which is that it is a wrong to be righted. I am representing the people of Market and West Deeping, and I do hope that everyone appreciates that the decision today is beyond any political. It is about righting the wrong that has been levied on the people of Deeping. The case for a leisure centre has obviously been raised today, but the case for the leisure centre was agreed nearly 50 years ago, so the argument for it is very obvious, and we have enjoyed the leisure centre for the last nearly 50 years. So whether we need one or not, that's not really up for debate. The debate really is this a viable plan? And I think I'd like to just reassure, I suppose, probably more one half of the House here, that none of the money is actually going to be released unless the following conditions on the list are given, are actually met. So then, in a sense, the money is safe, because if the conditions are met, we all benefit from it. So the conditions are there to safeguard the way we spend the money. And I'd just like to sort of clarify that the risk is so low, because if we can't meet the conditions, then the money is not at risk. That's really the point I'd like to make there. So the risks are well covered, and no money will be released unless those conditions are met. So what's to lose here? I think we should be voting for it, because it's quite obviously not going to be a risk. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Yes. And the people of Deeping are equal to all other residents in South West Devon. We have the same needs, the hopes, and the same votes, and we pay our taxes. So some of this is our money that we're actually asking to be spent in the Deepings. Thank you very much. And I'd like to say that Virginia is completely correct. The people of Deeping are amazing, and we're strong and resilient, and we'll all get behind it. So thank you very much.
Councillor Philip Knowles.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want to start by having an apology to all the people who were there on Tuesday, because they got a document that was ostensibly my comments to be read out or to be distributed on Tuesday, but unfortunately, you only got 4th page of 4 pages. I sent them, or thought I'd sent them, through to Graham in 2 batches, but my inability to work this machine very well meant that he only got the last page. And it was even worse, because the first thing on the top of the last page was about Bourne. And I was actually saying, if you read it carefully, I'm not going to comment on the effect on Bourne. It doesn't matter. We've got to look at Deepings, not Bourne, individually. So I wasn't for a minute suggesting that we concern ourselves about Bourne at this stage. I'll try to take you through very quickly, if I can, because I recognise time is moving on, my thinking through that thing, because it was a 3 or 4 page development of an idea which came to a conclusion. And the start of it was clearly to look at whether we had a moral responsibility to Deepings. And ultimately, after discussing it, I came to the conclusion that we had, because it was this administration, or the previous administration to this, which had let the Deepings down in a big way, through lack of maintenance, first of all, through broken promises at many, many stages, through sudden decision to close, and most of all, which not been said here, I really believe this horrible system of block voting, where a perfectly reasonable amendment which would have kept the business open and running and the options open and running was thrown out because of the block voting system at that time that was in place. And I welcome any idea that we're moving away from that at some stage, but move that along. So I do believe there is a moral responsibility to Deepings. But then I tried to think of what is the cost of a moral responsibility. Is it 10 quid? 100 quid? 1,000 quid? 100,000 pounds? 10.7 million? Whatever. What is the cost of that moral responsibility? Because it can't be a completely open number. It's got to be some value put on that moral responsibility, because a place like SKLEC can't just say, well, whatever it is, we'll pay it. That's not right. So I discussed that in that paper for a little while, and then I went on to the actual proposal itself and the risks that are involved. And everybody, the people I met from the CIC, a long, long time ago accepted that there were risks. They were trying to mitigate those risks as best they could, but there are risks and there are still risks. Risks in construction costs, which every big capital expenditure you've ever known has gone above its estimate, and there's inflation raging still, and it's going to go on like it is now for the next 12 months at least. So there's inflation costs and so on. And so there are risks there. There are risks in the revenue, which seems to put heavy revenue in day one. You know, and I don't think that is practicable. I'm like the idea that somebody else will be standing there, and they've got the finances to accommodate that. There's risks in the costs, because when the first cost came out, I'm going back a lot of these times to the first proposal we got. You looked at it, and the number of staff there for the hours that were going to be there seemed remarkably tight and inadequate. But again, there were risks there. And fourthly, there's a risk of what happens after. What the new structure says and what it does. Now, they say, well, we're giving it to a company that's very good at it, they're wonderful, but what if they don't make a profit? What if the numbers don't stack up at the end of the day? They will have responsibility for making up that profit, because they're not going to go on with a loss forever. You know, they're going to have something. So are they going to put the prices up? Are they going to change the things the way they're done? And effectively, we are being asked to give 850,000 with no controls left afterwards, no saying what goes on, whatever else like that. We're just giving a gift, unconditional gift of 850,000 people to Deepings. Now, I'll put at this point, I think what they've done, the CIC, has been fantastic. I think they've really, really performed extremely well, answering the problems that have been raised, and the work they've done, the energy, the commitment and so on, absolute first class. There's no need to repeat the need for swimming and so on and so forth. I understand that, and I earnestly, really earnestly want to be able to help achieve this, because my conclusion at the end of the day was that I was still concerned about the business case, but at the end of the day I didn't want today to drop it and say, no, whatever happened, to say, right, we've blown it, gone. Because I want the thing to be a success, genuinely want the thing to be a success, and I want to be able to donate 850,000. I'd even say more than that, actually, if we could more assurance of what was happening. And if it was 1.2 million or 1.3 million, and give us a little bit more assurance, I'd be happy with that as well. Not just £850,000, because I do believe we have a moral responsibility that overrides my risk concerns to Market Deeping. So I really hope it comes a success. This morning, or last night and this morning, there have been discussions about an amendment, and I've got the amendment now, which has just been presented to us just before, which is substantially different to the amendment we were talking about this morning in a sort of pre-cabinet meeting. I was going to propose an amendment which would add two things. First of all, request that the CIC, and this was discussed and nearly agreed this morning in Cabinet, to request that the CIC prepares a final business plan, final statement of its business plan, which addresses all the points that's been noted above. And the other thing, that it goes to an independent external consultant reporting back to SKDC, or to the Cabinet, or to SKDC. I've still been inclined to think, I'd hope that Ashley would accept those amendments so we can take it forward, and we give the SKDC absolute due diligence before we actually give the money away to 800.
30 seconds.
Okay. Before the 850,000. I rather suspect he's going to say, no, I don't want to do that. And in that situation, I will not put the amendments to it, and I will be voting for the proposal.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that the reason that I'm here today is largely the result of the way my residents were treated with regard to the Deeping Leisure Centre. I said at the time of the May local elections that I would support the reopening of this facility, and I will therefore be voting for this. I recognise that there are many challenges, but I think that the community group deserves this opportunity. I do not believe that we should be making my local residents travel further in order to prop up a customer base for pools elsewhere which do not even offer adequate lane swimming. There is local demand for a leisure centre in Deeping. This council has the funds to support this, so I would urge all members to give the community group and the Deeping Leisure Centre this chance. Thank you.
Councillor Whittington.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I suspect that some of my comments might not be received with quite the rapture that some of the previous ones have. But no doubt. Because I do actually find this quite a difficult decision, because I can only base my decision upon the evidence that I've got in front of me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the joint scrutiny meeting on Tuesday because of prior commitments. As you know, I spent 38 years as an accountant, and prior to that, I trained as a lawyer. So I appreciate when Ms. Moran talks about legal advice. Well, you can speak to 3 lawyers and get 4 different opinions. That's exactly right, Mark. And, of course, there is no case law associated with state subsidy. It would have been good if there had been, so we might have had some guidance. So that's an element of risk which I want to park. As an accountant, I've looked at the business case. I have seen the comments and the concerns raised by the officers here at SKDC, by in the SLC report, and also in a letter today received from Councillor Hill, corresponding concerns that have been raised by officers at LCC. I've also listened to Ms. Moran and to the LCC representative addressing some of those concerns, which is really important. And then we have Councillor Knowles, who stood up, and as soon as he said those 2 extra amendments, I thought that would satisfy an awful lot of my concerns. To actually have a further finalised business case that addresses all of the issues and concerns that have been raised by everybody, that then goes out to a genuine independent consultant. Because I know as an accountant, again, you can give an accountant, you give 3 accountants a set of numbers and you get 4 different responses back. Because in every decision that professional people make, there is an element of subjective interpretation. And I think that's a really, really important point to make. I see an awful lot of risk in this, and the risks have been, and there is in the SLC report a bit of a risk register. I would like to have seen a risk register from the CIC, because I think that would have been really, really quite important. I've also got some issues around the cash flow and the initial cash flows, because in the business world, cash is king. You can have a great product, you can have a great customer base, you can have a great set of people who work in your company. If you can't pay the bills, you go bust. So cash flow and cash is king. And it would have been good to have actually seen if there'd been, because my concern is in the initial year or 18 months of operation, the new CIC is going to have an awful lot of fixed costs it's going to have to cover. Salaries, utilities, whatever. And that's going to be at a certain level. And my concern is the income going to be sufficient to cover that cost? Because if it isn't, if you can't pay the gas bill, it doesn't matter you've got a great business case. If you can't pay the gas bill, you can take it to court, you're out of business. And that is a real big concern, which is why I'd love to have seen a revised business case and also some assurance that there is sufficient cash somewhere within this entity to get them through that initial period of trading. Because ultimately, businesses go bust either quickly or slowly. And I see here the potential that if there's not that pool of cash, this potentially could go bankrupt very, very slowly, because each month it never quite gets the income to match the cost. And then at one point, a whole lot of bills come in. And because I think that would be really disappointing to the residents of Deeping to have got so far, then to have a new CIC, then to have a new leisure provider, if there's not that cash behind it to keep that entity going during those crucial first 18 months to 2 years. Based on what I've got here, I can see an awful lot of risk here. I would like more reassurance from the CIC. On the basis of what I've got in front of me, I don't think I've got a full, complete picture of everything. I really am in a quandary because I don't really think I can safely commit £850,000 of taxpayers' money, which, at the end of the day, it is taxpayers' money. There's part of that money that's coming from my residents in my ward, you know. But as point has been raised, there's always risk in everything you do. There are too many unanswered questions here for me today to unequivocally support the granting of £850,000. If I had more reassurance around a lot of the questions here, and if Councillor Knowles' two recommendations were actually on the table, I actually think that would give us potentially that level of reassurance. At the moment, I'm going to find it difficult to support the recommendation, but I want more evidence to be able to potentially in the future look at this again. And I know, given the letter that's been received today from Councillor Hill, the timetable on this has now been concatenated right down, and potentially we've only maybe got until the early part of February to get this information. And I appreciate we're at the 11th hour on this, but I'm not. But I am struggling. I would like to support this, but I am struggling on the basis of what I've got in front of me to actually do it, and with the questions I've got in my own mind.
Councillor Ian Selby.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Is it a point of information? Quickly.
So, regarding you said about the cash flow, we've reiterated it won't be the CIC that runs the leisure centre. There will be a third-party company coming in to run the leisure centre that will have the cash flow that they've said for a minimum of the first 12 months, even if we didn't take anybody on, they would have the cash flow to cover any discrepancies that would be in a negative figure. So hopefully that answers your question regarding the cash flow. The cash flow isn't needed to be provided by the CIC, because the CIC won't be running the leisure centre.
Councillor Barry Dobbs. Oh, sorry, Ian Selby.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Fellow councillors, have we heard the voice of the Deepings people? I can hear them. I can hear them loud and clear. That's a community, as it's been said, 18,000 people. They're fighting for an issue to do with the health and well-being of their community. We know about the benefits of swimming. It's one of the best exercises you can get. You know, it's good for your joints, it's good for your breathing, it's good for your mental health. The potential rewards, they're immeasurable. They really are. But that's a community that want their children to learn how to swim. There's a lot of kiddies in the Deepings. Madam Chairman. She's not listening. What she's Madam Chairman. Oh, wait. I hope she stopped the clock.
Sorry, Ian.
What was Madam Chairman? Someone's got your attention now. I was talking about the health and well-being of
so as a lot of other people.
And the community of the Deepings wanting their children to learn how to swim. Madam Chairman, when I was about 7 years old, I couldn't swim. I was at Skegness Beach, and I fell into like a sand pool. And a gentleman passer by, he pulled me out. I wouldn't be here today, Madam Chair, if it wasn't for that gentleman. So I asked the question. You know, this for me, it's not just about a financial cost. It's not just a moral cost. But what cost do we put on the lives of children that live in the Deepings area that wouldn't normally get the opportunity to learn how to swim? So I put that at the forefront of my thoughts, Madam Chairman, for this decision today. Also, I want to make a point that's not been made, a fresh point, Madam Chairman. A community that's fighting for the health and well-being of their community. Here in Grantham, we know only too well what it feels like to fight for something to do with the health and well-being of our community. Grantham Hospital, Madam Chairman. And here, vast majority of us here today, we don't live in the Deepings, but we had decisions here in Grantham made by people that don't live in our community, negative decisions there were. And I don't want the people of the Deepings to feel like what we felt like over the hospital issue, Madam Chair. I don't want that to happen, because it makes you feel devalued. It makes you feel as if you don't exist. And I don't want the people of Deepings to think that we're going to be ignored, just like we were ignored here in Grantham. So, you know, I feel quite passionate about this for the people of Deepings. And I hope they're going to get their leisure centre. I hope that the CIC, I'd like to wish them all the very best for the future, should this decision go through today. And also, it was said earlier today, Madam Chairman, that politics is the art of compromise. Well, I hope there's going to be some compromise here today for the people of the Deepings. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Barry Dobson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes. Thank you very much for this debate. I think it's been really good up until now. I would like to point out that I think it's important that the Deepings have the leisure centre, but not only for the Deepings. This covers people come from Thirlby, from all around to go and swim in the Deepings, because it does have the only pool where you can swim properly. I understand. I've also been in the Deepings when I had my unit on the Deepings industrial estate. It was taken around there for squashing. So I do have an affinity towards the Deepings. However, at the moment when I look at the proposal, I will say it's come over very well, but we read deeply into it. There are two things that I have. If you look at the salaries and staff costs, for year one, you've got £501,000. And then you go on to year 15, the estimated provision is £758, not £758,000. And this is what concerns me about the whole of this presentation, that there are things in here that don't add up, that haven't been looked at in depth. And I would certainly, as Councillor Whittington says, you know, we'd like, you know, and Councillor Knowles, we need to look into this a lot deeper and make sure we got these figures right, because it is a lot of money. And don't forget, when we all blame South Kesteven for not keeping this leisure centre up to speed and up to date and you know, in working order, we have to remember it is the County Council, which Councillor Dilks will support me on, in 2014 stopped paying us £147,000 per year to maintain that centre. We had to do it on our own, and consequently, when we look at it, and I was of course very much involved, as most of you know, that it was not viable to keep that open. But it would be nice to see it open. And I will, you know, I'm now not in that position, but I think it would be fantastic to see it open. It is needed, or a centre is needed, whether it's that one, but let's say that one would be it. But I think you need to go through the whole business case and get that right. And then I think we can see, is it 850,000? Is it a million? Is it a million and a half? I don't know. I don't have the confidence in that report at the moment. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Peter Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. One point that has not been made is that the proximity of Deepings, of the many residents of South Kesteven who use the Grantham pool live further from Deeping than either the distance from Deeping to Stamford, or even Deeping to Bourne, or Deeping to Spalding. That has not been made. The annual charge of £275,000 a year payable by the council has not been referred to, but what has been referred to is that we've got to make this decision now. So I'll shut up, but it has to be made. Thank you.
Councillor Matt Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to speak in my first ever full council meeting. Please bear with me, as I am the newest councillor here today. I do believe in providing good, value for money leisure services across the district, and I do genuinely wish that Deepings Leisure Centre was in a position where it could reopen in some capacity. Today, how do I go about undertaking this decision and try and make a fair and balanced view of this, kind of balancing the pros and the cons? Now, I'm no leisure expert, I'm no lawyer, I'm no builder, I'm no accountant either. I have tried to educate myself, as I'm sure many other members have done, understanding the particulars of the reports. Now, thankfully, we do have the comments diligently written by professionals, by experts, including our own officers and SLC, who know these topics much better than myself, and I'm sure many of you here today. I very much value the input and comments of our 151 officer into the financial information of the enterprise, someone with over 35 years of experience, I think according to your LinkedIn profile that I looked at last night. Maybe, as I'm still the new boy, it's just me, but on a side note, I personally think more time was needed to process and comprehend the debate on Tuesday from a 4-hour meeting, and today we get landed with more paperwork. Personally, I would have liked more time, and I know time was tight, but, you know, these decisions shouldn't be rushed, and we should take the time to, you know, have these kind of conversations and digest them. As a member of the Culture and Leisure Committee, I have seen firsthand the true cost of running a leisure centre, something that I had no idea before I was elected in November. I have to say I'm a little surprised there wasn't much more detail in the report about the impact to Leisure SK. I believe the Cabinet Member for Culture, Councillor Stokes, did mention that modelling was being carried out in answer to a question in the last full council, but maybe I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen a financial number of how much this is predicted to be. Section 1.4 of the report from the 151 officer states of a potential detrimental impact from customer migration. Surely we should fully understand the true financial impact on our entire district before we make this decision. The success and failure of Deeping's Leisure Centre is coupled together with our own leisure centres. I have noted that both the Deeping Leisure Centre and CIC and Leisure SK are in need of a leisure management company. SKDC has recently concluded an initial tender process in December where I believe 5 responses were received. I would be probably surprised if that the 5 received were the same ones that were bidding for the CIC project. The statement from the leader in the Culture and Leisure Committee on Tuesday reaffirmed the Cabinet's desire to explore the market in the shortest possible time. The Deeping CIC, of course, need a leisure management company in place to secure the building from County Council. It's my understanding that both endeavours will be tendering at the same time and will in fact be directly competing for the same providers. Will we end up with the same provider? I don't know the answer to it. I will be unfortunately voting against the proposal this evening, as I am frustratingly missing some of this information to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Penny Milnes.
Thank you. I'm standing here today as an independent councillor, totally independent, and you can laugh all you like, but I am. And I wonder if we have all seen Councillor Martin Hill's letter today. And I will refer to it at the end of what I'm going to say. And there is obviously a large measure of moral outrage at the loss of the Deepings Leisure Centre. And I have some sympathy with the affected residents. The community group have tried their best with great enthusiasm to cobble together a business plan to resurrect the centre, and I can't doubt the benefits to residents. Nonetheless, we are in a new context, and there are several unanswered questions, or to coin a phrase, plenty of known unknowns and unknown unknowns within the business plan and a lack of assurance. However, as a result, and it is a huge problem, there is much doubt about the risk and viability going forward, and a lot of risk to SK in agreeing a subsidy which may or may not be open to judicial challenge, and I am not assured. Importantly, I think we should relook at Richard Wiles' paragraphs 1.1 to 1.6 in the report, which says it all as evidence. The way to balance, I fear, must be on the reality of unacceptable legal and financial risk to SKDC. The moral hope and outrage as a mantra, unfortunately, does not provide a suitable risk argument for the spending of public money. If this council agrees to go forward and agree this subsidy with the conditions, then we will be voting with emotion versus sense. At some point, like now, at the end of a scrutiny process, common sense, together with the officer's report, should prevail. The use of 27% of the final reserve SKT has is concerning, and we have a wider responsibility to our district-wide needs. I believe, unfortunately, and with great sadness, that we should not be making such a risky decision in the current uncertain financial and market circumstances, which could jeopardise SKD's reputation and finances. See our risk register. Or if we make a decision which is rather irresponsible, arguably willful, to agree. I shall therefore have to vote against. I also note Martin Hill's letter concurs with this sort of approach to the risk, and he has lots of doubts, or LCC have lots of doubts, and he has put a deadline of the 2nd of February. Unfortunately, this is an insufficient timescale to rectify or wait for the many necessary conditions to be adhered to. I do hope that in future we have a new way forward for the south of the district, and we can work with private partnerships and different models to provide some sort of leisure element. But I'd like to go to the vote now, if we can, because I think lots of speaking has been said. We're going round in circles, possibly. So I would like to go to the vote. Thank you.
I have just got one more speaker on my screen, and I totally agree with you. I think everybody's had a good crack of the whip, and I'll just ask Max Sawyer to speak, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Baxter to sum up.
Thank you, Chairman. I must confess to being a bit of a pendulum on this. My inclination was to vote one way, then the other, then back again, and then back again. I've still not decided. When it comes to a vote, and I am aware that time is getting on, could I request 5 minutes thinking time so I can clarify my thoughts? I genuinely still have not decided, and I'd just like 5 peaceful minutes to think this through.
If Councillor Sawyer is proposing an adjournment for 5 minutes, he needs a seconder, and then we need to go to the vote. Councillor Morgan is seconding.
I would like to second, but also, not only that, but because we've only just had this paper presented.
Can you stand up, please?
Sorry. Thank you. I apologise. Not only to support Councillor Sawyer, but we've only just had this presented to us, a letter from the County Council, and I think everybody should have an opportunity to properly read that. It was put on our desks just as the meeting started.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour of a 10-minute break, and 10 minutes only, 10 minutes only, and you're back here. 5, well, there's no tea and coffee. You have a 5-minute break. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? The motion. Any abstentions? The motion is carried. 5 minutes. So we're back here.
Tidiness reasons, we are suggesting a slight amendment to the whole thing. So if the monitoring officer could explain, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a very minor alteration to the motion, but the beginning of the motion talks about recommend a one-off grant. I think we're actually looking for council to make a decision about making a grant, but it's obviously subject to the following conditions that are set out in the proposal, with the final one being final approval by Cabinet. So I think we just wanted to make it clear that the proposal is to effectively delegate authority to Cabinet to make it to grant the 850,000 subject to the conditions set out in the motion. So it was just making that point clear. I don't have the wording in front of me, but perhaps Councillor Baxter wouldn't mind just reading out the amended version, and we can put it on the screen if that's helpful as well. Thank you, Chairman.
So the amendment is so that it reads...
Councillor Milnes.
Can I just clarify, is it a one-off grant or a subsidy, please?
As far as we're aware, it's a one-off grant. Am I correct, Councillor Baxter?
My understanding is it is a grant which is a subsidy, and whether or not it is... shall we call Bevan Britton to explain the difference between a grant and a subsidy? It is possible to be the same, in the same way as it's possible to be a Conservative and an Independent.
I'll let Mr. Watts clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps one-off payment would be clearer.
So, thank you, Chair. In response to the request from the Monitoring Officer, the top of it now reads, the Council notes the comments and outcome of the Joint Scrutiny Committee meeting, Joint Overview Scrutiny Committee of 9th of January, and resolves to delegate authority to the Cabinet to approve a one-off payment of £850,000 to the Deepings Community Leisure Centre CIC, subject to etc, etc. And then point I is deleted.
So, thank you, Chairman. So, procedurally, just to ensure that everyone's happy with that alteration to the proposal, we just need consent from the Council and the seconder of the motion, and we can then go to a recorded vote on that proposal. But after Councillor Baxter has summed up.
Councillor Stokes, would you like to speak?
No, not to speak,
just to confirm that that's... Okay, thank you.
Consent of the Council.
And then you need consent of everybody in the room.
Consent of everybody in the room.
You need consent.
Is everyone happy in the room to accept this alteration? Would you like to give a show of hands, please? Those that's happy.
Yeah, that's fine.
Those against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Would you like to proceed, Councillor Baxter?
Thank you, and thank you to the Monitoring Officer for pointing that out. Thank you all for coming to speak about the Deepings Leisure Centre once again, and for coming in such good faith and in such good humour. I really appreciate the contributions across the way. I could go back to each individual bit. It would be tempting to kind of say particular things, but they might be misinterpreted as personal comments, and I don't want to do that. With regard to the possible amendment, which was talking about the getting yet another consultant to review the business plan, I hesitate to put that in writing, partly because it could delay the whole process, and partly because we've spent lots of money on consultants previously. The one that you mentioned earlier, Councillor Gill, was £250,000 for a MACE report to tell us what we should have already known. But also, partly because I'm happy that the Cabinet and the Cabinet member responsible will keep us accountable to make sure that we carry on asking awkward questions and difficult questions to the CIC about the business plan, and that is a process that is going to go on and on and on, up to and after the £850,000 has been granted, if that's what you decide today. So rather than... I want to say again, thank you for the officers for the time that they've put in across the teams. It's been very helpful, and also to Councillor Moran, or Miss Moran, if we have to call her that today. Virginia has done sterling work, as have the gentlemen at the back of the room and the people of the meeting. So I shouldn't get... I was told before the meeting, don't get too emotional about this, but also I was told that if we were objective about everything, we would just ask Richard to tell us the answers, and that might be a more practical way of going on. But we are here to... but we are... we are here to... We are here to make the subjective decisions based on what our communities need. So you were all invited to the Rob Wellborn Gala last year, hosted by the Deeping Swimming Club in Exile at the Grantham Mears Leisure Centre, and quite a few people of you came, and I'm grateful to those who did. Even though I've been advocating for better leisure facilities for years, there was a moment during that gala when the whole point of this project and this debate was crystallised for me. And forgive me, Chair, I might get emotional. Got the tissues ready. Emotion's important, and accountants know the cost of... I'm not talking about you, Councillor Whittington, but accountants know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. At the gala... I hope this is coming off my tongue. Towards the end of one of the sessions at the gala was the girls' 200-metre individual medley. That's 50 metres of each of the 4 strokes. Competing in the first heat was a young girl swimming for the Deepings named Ophelia. She was only 9 years old, competing in the heat with 2 older girls. The IM starts off with 2 lengths of butterfly. I wonder how many people in this room could swim 1 length of butterfly. Then follows 50 metres backstroke, 50 metres breaststroke. By the time Ophelia got to her tumble turn to go into the last 2 lengths of front crawl, the other swimmers had already finished. So Ophelia had to swim the last 50 metres on her own. Except that she wasn't on her own. Her coach was cheering her on. And her teammates were cheering her on. And her family were cheering her on. And by the time she got to the final turn and the final length, the coaches and swimmers of all 7 competing teams from across Lincolnshire were all cheering her on. Especially Coach Ben from Lincoln Vulcans, who is a force of nature. All the crowd and all the officials were willing Ophelia to win the race, to finish the race. And when she did, there was a cheer worthy of an Olympic stadium. All our kids across the district deserve that level of encouragement. Today, you have the opportunity, we have the opportunity to cheer for all our kids across the whole district. Today, we have the opportunity to show just how much we want our communities to succeed. Let's all show that we're the good guys and we're the adults and we want to enable our community to make this happen. Please vote for this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. We will now go to the vote, and a recorded vote has been asked for. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Chairman. So I will call out every councillor's name in alphabetical order. If you could please indicate if you are for, against or abstaining in relation to the proposal that's been put. Okay. So Councillor Bailey. Against. Councillor Emma Baker. For. Councillor Rhys Baker. For. Councillor Baxter. For. Councillor Bellamy. Against. Councillor Bisnouth Singh. For. Councillor Bird. For. Councillor Cleaver. For. Councillor Crawford.
With a heavy heart, against.
Councillor Cunnington. For. Councillor Denniston. For. Councillor Dilks. For. Councillor Dixon Warren.
Against.
Councillor Dobson.
For the first time, abstain.
Councillor Ellis.
For.
Councillor Fellows.
For.
Councillor Gadd.
For.
Councillor Harrison.
For.
Councillor Gill.
Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Abstain.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Knight.
Abstain.
Councillor Knowles.
For.
Councillor Leadenham.
Against.
Councillor Lay.
For.
Councillor Martin.
Against.
Councillor Milnes.
Against.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Noon.
For.
Councillor Rahman.
For.
Councillor Rayside.
For.
Councillor Sandal.
Against.
Councillor Sawyer.
Against.
Councillor Selby.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Stokes. Councillor Stooke. Councillor Trollope-Bellew. Councillor Trotter. Councillor Turner. Councillor Whittington. Councillor Jane Wood. Councillor Paul Wood. Councillor Woolley. Oh, sorry.
Can you all listen, please?
Thank you, Chairman. So I can confirm that there were 26 votes in favour, 16 votes against and 3 abstentions. So the motion has passed. Thank you.
Thank you all. That concludes the business for our first meeting. I would like to thank members and officers for their cooperation. Right, so it says it here. I'm reading. I can read. I would like to thank members and officers for their cooperation, and I'd like to say how nice it's been to do this meeting. There's not been any backbiting or any issues, and it's a pleasure. So I wish you all a safe journey home. I now declare the meeting closed.